the three countries are Argentina, Colombia, and what was the other one? Was it Venezuela?
And Venezuela.
Okay. And what about these three is it that stands out from the rest? We were just actually traveling to Costa Rica in February. We spent some time there, and it seemed like as I was looking at potential Airbnbs, there could be potential there depending on the property. So what sets these three apart from other Latin American countries?
Yes, I think that is the key to the issue. Um, you, as an investor, you might be prioritizing by cash flow. If you do, Costa Rica could be a great, you know, country to invest in. I cannot talk to, yeah, I cannot talk about that in particular. But if you're trying to optimize for appreciation, what you see in Venezuela, in Colombia, and Argentina is that prices are at historical lows. The problem about Venezuela, we researched it. We found the properties were priced at a similar, you know, the price of construction was similar to the price of commercializing the asset. So it seemed that it was, it seemed like the attitude of being greedy was reasonable, right? Because when you spot that, you say that something might be off, right?
Yeah.
The thing about Venezuela is it's strange to us because it's a dictatorship. You don't know if anything is going to change there, to be honest. And as an investor, to represent some, you know, to raise money to invest in Venezuela to us seemed like too extreme. The thing about Colombia was that the opportunity wasn't clear. There were some cities where prices were low, but we didn't have certainty that if something major happened, like it will happen in Argentina in the coming years, we will, like for example, mortgages being reintroduced, that prices would, you know, spike. So, to me, I kept coming back to the idea of a margin of safety, which most investors are familiar with, which is, you know, if the price of the asset is similar to its cost, in this case the cost of construction, there is some certainty that the investment might be safe. Now, there's a different issue, which is how you approach appreciation. So we know that we're buying it at a decent price, but why is this a good, you know, why might it be a good investment for you or for anyone else? We operate under one hypothesis, which is that in Argentina in particular, there have been 18 years of left ruling the country. That when that happened, those types of government really like to print money, so they can keep, you know. So there's money
We don't know
printing is out
anything
of
about
control.
that here in the U.S.
Well, in Argentina, inflation last year was 100%, so
Wow.
let's not compare.
Yeah.
But it sounds bad, but it's on, you know, what I found when I came back to Argentina in 2018, it was like, I was thinking like, this is an amazing opportunity, right?
Mhm.
But I looked at it with different eyes. I was thinking about as an investor. And in 2024, there's an election coming in 2023. The left parties are expected to get less than 30% of the votes. So we had the experience with a rightist a democratic government in 2016, which reintroduced the mortgages, and we expect the same to happen as inflation becomes a priority, because otherwise it's not. And the other thing is mortgages are one thing and how they impact prices. The other thing is prices for real estate in Argentina are at historical lows. So you can buy properties in Buenos Aires City for $150 per square foot, compared to 2,500 or more in 2016 and so forth.
Wow.
Right. So there's the two things: it's mortgages and the opportunity, because prices are low. So those two things combined makes Argentina attractive for investors looking for appreciation.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that summary, because those are some of the main issues that people ask about, financing being probably the biggest one, and then the second one is I think around safety, safety of themselves, and then also safety of the investment. You know, I used to invest in Chicago, so I understand corrupt governments, but that's always a concern in some countries, like you mentioned in Venezuela, and so I imagine you still have to go through, like when you're developing projects, you still have to go through a permit process and inspections with the government and stuff like that. So is that an issue? Is there an issue of, having to know the right people to get things done, or is it pretty straightforward?
I think I mentioned earlier that when we were discussing about building a tech startup in Chile, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
that in some aspects the country wasn't safe enough for building a company. The thing about real estate is that property rights are enforceable, as they are in Argentina, as in the U.S., for example, or in Colombia, and so forth. That in particular works. I do not identify issues about corruption, for example, needing to pay people off to get a permit or whatever. I think that's no longer the case. That was probably, in the 90s and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. I think that as a, you don't have access to financing, but you can buy a brand new apartment for 70,000, and you would expect to sell for twice as much in 7 years and so forth. So you need less capital. That is one thing. The other question is how to structure correctly. Set up a legal structure correctly so everything works. I speak for the process that we applied, because we incorporated a company in the U.S. to purchase properties in Argentina and so forth, and we had to go through all of the process. And it's pretty similar of what would happen if someone wants to buy real estate in the U.S. as a foreigner. You would need to find an attorney. What we did, and this is I think what anyone should do, is you just look for the best, legal office in the country for
Yeah.
real estate. We used a website called chambers.com. They give up, they select the top 3 real estate studios per country, and you will pay a little bit more, but you will find a law firm that's really professional, speaks the language, and can serve you in this country and in any foreign country. So you need to set up. You need a social. It's not a social security number, but you need a tax ID.
Mm-hmm.
So what you would do with this legal firm is you will process a tax ID as a foreigner, and using that, you might give this law firm, for example, power of attorney, so they can buy the assets for you. That's what we do. We find someone who has that power in Argentina to sign documents for us, for example, and then you would continue to pay taxes in the U.S. We can dive deeper into that afterwards. But you need to find a very good law firm, and you need to find a real estate agent. And in our case, we just kept it simple. We went to Keller Williams. We asked who had expertise on short-term rentals, and that's how we started. I think if you find any international real estate firm or brokerage, they will give you an agent that speaks the language and will help you with the process. And if you're managing a short-term rental, you would probably, I'm not sure, but you might look for a property manager, as you do in the U.S. in some occasions. So tourism is usually tourists speak English, and property managers do as well. So you need to find the right professional who's also English speaking, as you would do when you're working on a different state in the U.S.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I want to get into some example numbers here, but I'm really curious. When it comes to inflation, you were mentioning how inflation was, about 100% last year, but yet prices are the lowest they've ever been. Typically, that's not the case. Inflation pushes up the value of real assets like real estate. So, how did that occur, and what's making you think that it will turn around? I know you mentioned new financing coming on board, which obviously would allow leverage and be a big boost to real estate, but it seems like the correlation is almost off.
Well, yes, but the price of real estate it's all about supply and demand, right? So what happens, for example, when in the U.S. when interest rates go up, there's less people willing to take debt to buy properties. So demand may go, it slightly decrease and prices will then follow. That was in the U.S. What happened is interest rate came up, but demand remained stable for a bit, and so did supply. So that's why so many people were concerned. What happened in Argentina is we should take two different things. When mortgages were reintroduced in 2017, only for 1 year, the number of people buying properties increased by 40%, because now there were the only people that were able to buy properties before that were those that had cash in hand, right?
Yeah.
The thing about mortgages, which I think is the key factor here, and that's why we would invest in Argentina and not in Colombia, is that you have certainty that with the reintroduction of mortgages, prices will come up. So you're betting on financing. You're not forecasting demand or anything else. That's why I mentioned a margin of safety, right? We know that at some point mortgages will be reintroduced between 2025 and 2027, which normally is expected to happen. So we know that there will be a price correction, and we bet on that for those properties. We bet on only for holding for 5 years and to resell them right after mortgages have been reintroduced.